Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Dear Darling, and should we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhollow today? So, have you heard my latest in technology news, which I find quite ironic, seeing as we were talking about bugs and exploits, I suppose, that caused, caused internet blackout yesterday, but things which happened in the past. Well, apparently Twitch has been entirely leaked, including all the source code and passwords and everything. So, encrypted passwords, to be fair, but still, if you have a Twitch account, I would recommend you change your password and probably set up two-factor authentication. And just, check that your account's not getting into. Probably if you're just a normal account, you don't have really much to worry about, but if you're a streamer, be warned. Anyway, hello there everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow, it's 5:38 PM on Wednesday, October 6, 2021. Is there really no news today, so we'll go about our usual business. I mean, I don't really expect this Animal Crossing series to be a substitute, I suppose, for your news source. I just found it almost ironic, like waking up this morning being like, oh, Twitch has been leaked. I was like, oh, what? How's this happened? Luckily, I already had two-factor authentication on. I changed my password just in case. I don't think anyone's going to really get much from hacking into my Twitch account, but still. Hey dear, I was looking for a piece of candy I dropped onto my bed, and I found this. It's as hard as a rock. I'm pretty sure it's not the candy I dropped. Unless it turns out to be a toffee bar. Then it is. Oh no, we've definitely had this before. And I want it back. I remember that. I want it back. Is Red our visitor for today? We got to fight the Joy-Con Drift. Not our visitor. Very disappointing, I must say. As we are just slowly counting down the days for... It's Leif. Hello, Leif. The new update to come out so we can actually have some new experience. I did not pay attention to any of that. Talk to people, fossils... Cloves, craft, seashells. Okay. Can do. Yeah. So, I didn't really look into what happened on the Twitch side of things. I assume it's the source code for how the website actually runs got leaked. Like, all the inner workings of behind that and, the front end stuff, I assume. Apparently a load of streamers, like, income got leaked. Unsurprisingly, streamers make a lot, well, the top streamers, I should say, make a heck ton of money. Like absurd amounts of money, like absurd amounts that you look at it and be like, whoa, some people make this in a year. That's like not a bad amount. It's actually kind of crazy if you think about it. I mean, I don't want to get all like socio-economic, political all up in the channel, because I don't really think it's a place to discuss these sort of things. I don't really want to talk about it. It just leads to too much conflict, which is just unnecessary, I suppose, at this point, because this is Animal Crossing. We're just here to vibe and have a good time. Like looking at some of the incomes people can, I'm just like, I don't even know what I do with that sort of money. But perhaps that's because I don't have it. Maybe it's the sort of thing when you have that sort of money, you know what to do with. But yeah, I mean, it just sort of raises a questionability, I suppose, of your own cybersecurity and all that sort of thing, which is actually something I kind of studied back in uni, and a little bit of cryptography and how they encrypt messages and decrypt them to try and make them safe from attacks and that sort of thing, and all sorts of different attacks. I mean, I can try and tell you about some of them. It's a little bit difficult to record off the top of my head because I haven't used that information for ages. But if I found my notes again and like looked through, I'd probably be able to tell you. But one of them I remember, which really stuck with me, I suppose, as being like, oh, that's actually just like a really interesting way to go about it, is this concept of, imagine you're like sending bank transfers or information about bank transfers from one place to another, and you encrypt it. Normally what you encrypt and how you encrypt it would be you represent whatever you want to send as a number. Normally some numbers in binary is a certain amount of bits or bytes, because that's what computers work in. But yeah, you send it as a number, you times it by a gigantic prime number, or two gigantic prime numbers if I recall, and like send it onwards or something like that. Wait, hold on. No, I don't think that's what you do for this particular exploit that you can use. As you encrypt it somehow and you send it on. But basically the concept is, if you have an idea of basically the system that they use, there's a way you can exploit the system to your benefit without actually knowing the numbers, aka the key that they multiply by, to actually try and protect their data. Because like, if you send a bank transfer being like, oh, deposit £10 into this person's bank account, if you know what number, if you know like what part is representing the value of like the transfer, you can like just multiply that number up by a certain factor or whatever, and then suddenly that transfer £10 becomes like transfer £1,000 or something like that. The details are a little bit fuzzy for me. I can't quite recall. I'm pretty sure that wasn't encryption by multiplying two different primes together, because I don't think that'll work. It was something to do with using modular arithmetic to get around things, but I can't quite recall. I'm sorry to say. And very bad lecture, but it was a bit unprepared, so I'm not going to take too much of a fall for that sort of thing. But I remember learning about that and being like, that's actually just like, one, clever, and two, also maybe in some aspect kind of scary. You don't even have to like. I suppose when people think about like hackers and people who break into, I don't know why I keep saying break like that, but it's really fun. You break into things and do like certain like malicious deeds, and of course getting money, getting information and stuff like that. You'd be like, oh, it's just some like guy in like with matrix glasses on and a long trench coat, like tip tap tacking on a laptop as streams of numbers and green numbers like flow past his monitor. It's not quite as that. It's just obviously that's very much a Hollywood representation of it, but the sort of thing where you just like well, they don't even need to like break the system. They just need to know the system, and then they can already break it from the outside in. To be fair, that security method that they use to like encrypt information as a send of information across like that is not one that's actually used. It's just like a protocol or something. I forget all the details. Not all the details. The details are still kind of. I forget the details, but I remember the broad strokes picture, which, in my opinion, is the important part, the understanding behind it, and like, you can look up the details very easily afterwards. But the grand concepts you actually understand are the more important parts to learn. But your mileage may vary when it comes to that sort of thing. But yeah, it was just like, wow, you can really do a lot with just like with some information. That was a lot to do with my like cryptography course. Was a lot about like learning about certain things and how you break them, and like etc. etc. How you can work things out, or why something's so difficult to break through. And I mean, that's just like. You don't really need to know all that information as a general end user for being like, I need secure passwords and what exactly constitutes a secure password, to be fair. I mean, general rules is just more complicated is better and not used. Anything which is not used is probably reign supreme. Anything in like the common ones is always crazy insecure, I suppose. I don't mean insecure as in like self-conscious. I mean insecure as in don't use these passwords. Like passwords, anything ending on 123 or like 321 or like 111. Password, pass, admin, hello, goodbye. All these really common words. Like I always thought like if you want to have a simple password, like at the very least you should at least do a much more uncommon word than something like hello, goodbye, or password. Like why would you use password? I understand passwords also used often as like a default password setting. It's quite common for like router settings and things like that for the default password just to be password, because I don't know, like admin password. If you ever need to break into something, not that I suggest you do. If I'm going to be a hacker, I'd rather be a white hat hacker, which is basically a hacker who's working to improve cybersecurity rather than a black hat hacker. But I'm not really much of a hacker in the first place, so it's not really my forte. Yeah, but I forgot what I was saying. You would have thought that you could at least put a little bit more effort in to do a more complicated password. Just like, like don't put personal detail in, but just like, like think of a random location in a fictional place that you like I don't know, Diagon Alley in, or maybe Harry Potter's not a good example, but it's the first thing that came to mind, with a longish name. Like the Polar Express. And then just put that down and then put like some random numbers as the end. Is that a secure password? No, not really, to be honest. But it's better than password 123. And it's not going to protect you from like a large scale like hacker attack. Like if documents like decrypted passwords get leaked or anything, it's not going to protect you. But it's going to protect you from like people who aren't going to try very hard to try and break into your account. They're just people who are just searching for any account to break into, not just your account specifically. I'm going to say, if a hacker wants your account specifically and you aren't a cybersecurity expert, they can probably find a way. Through spear phishing, if you're not careful and things like that. And that's not to like scare you or rile you up or anything. Just like be thankful, I suppose, that you don't have a huge target on your back. And it's not really worthwhile. People who want to target after those things probably go after larger businesses and that sort of thing, where I'd imagine it's a lot easier to sort of cover your paper trail. I don't know, by the way. I've not really worked on the illicit sides of the law, so I can't really comment on that sort of thing. It's just my imagination. Not imagination, assumption, probably a better word. But yeah, yeah, like, it's the same theory of, like, bike locks and that sort of thing. You could just, like, leave your bicycle unlocked and just, like, hope it doesn't get stolen. It'll probably get stolen. Why? Because it was the easiest pick, you know? A bike thief's not going to come along and be like, I'm going to steal specifically this bike because it looks the coolest or anything like that. Most of them are opportunists. Opportunists? Is that how you say that word? They're looking to steal a bike which is easy to steal and not put too much effort in. So if they just walk past like a load of lot bikes, you know, they're going to be like, oh, that's a lot of effort. I'm not really going to be bothered to do something like that. But they walk past and they're just like, oh, look, there's an unlocked bike. And, you know, they're that type of person. They're going to be like, mine for the taking. So it's why even like a cheap lock is significantly better than having no lock. And then once, you know, the next step up is obviously getting a good lock is better than getting a cheap lock. Because you want to deter people. If someone wants to steal your bike, they can break through that bike lock. We can get like an angle grinder out, we can bust it out, and they're really determined, we can distract the police or whatever, I don't know, and do it at like 3 AM and no one will notice, and then they'll take your bike. But most people don't want to do that. They just want to take the easiest one. So if they can cut you like your bike lock off with like a pair of pliers or something like that, they will, because, you know, it's easy. If it's right there and if it's there for the taking, we're gonna do it. So that's why, you know, you don't need to buy like a ridiculously expensive, like unbreakable lock, because, you know, sometimes yourself, maybe you'll lose a key or something and you'll be like, oh no, I wish I had a way to break this lock in a much more easy way without calling a professional, otherwise, you know, I can't access it myself. You just need to have a lock which is, you know, it sounds a bit like not dismissive but a bit rude, but being like, your lock just needs to be better than the weakest lock in that rack, you know? Or like it needs to be above a certain sort of strength, such that it would, a bike thief will look at it and be like, yeah, that's not worth my time, or that sort of thing. Sorry, I need to like blow my nose. Hold on. Yeah, which is why but the bike lock I used to have, well, I mean, I still do have. I just don't really ride a bike anymore because I don't particularly need to. But it's not like astonishing. Like you could definitely break into it. But the thing is, it's like difficult enough. I think most bike thieves who would be looking to try and break into it would be like, nah, it's not worth the effort. It's like a regular old U-bar bike lock, but it also comes with a reasonably thick cable which you can swing around. Because apparently bike thieves out there also just like take take like wheels as well for some reason. Heaven knows why, but and I assume it's more expensive, but like sometimes they'll just like take your back wheel. So at least this way, you know, mine's a bit more difficult, you know, and I use the U-lock on the front of a bike connected to the frame and the front wheel and the actual bike rack. Hold on, what am I doing? Hot item. By the way, I'm not saying this is like the best practice or anything, it's just what I did. I thought it'd just be an interesting story. Yeah, you like clip the front wheel and the frame to the bike rack and U-lock, and then you have a cable and you run it through the back wheel and connect it to U-lock as well. So anyone who's like trying to steal a back wheel will be like, okay, well, I could try and steal this lock's back wheel. Don't know why you would. It was like not that expensive a bike in the first place, but I could try and steal this one, or I could try and steal that one who, you know, they haven't got anything protecting their back wheel, and it'd be significantly easier. I suppose it's a bit callous, if anything, to be like, oh, it's sort of like when in a zombie apocalypse, you don't need to run fast, you just need to be not the slowest person. And yeah, I guess it kind of is callous, but unfortunately, the callousness, I guess what I'm trying to say is you shouldn't be blaming people who own the property being callous. You should perhaps be a bit more callous to the people who are stealing it in the first place. But yeah, I mean, a similar principle applies to passwords. If someone's just trying to find any account to break into, they're gonna try all of them with like simple, like, this is like low level hackers are gonna try like simple like brute force programs which can just brute force a load of really common passwords, and they'll just, you know, check a load of accounts and see if any of them actually work. You just need to be strong enough to trick that, basically. And, you know, XKCD have done a good comic on this sort of thing. Like, I feel like people tend to not want to do complicated passwords because they'll never remember them. One, you can get a password manager. Two, you can alternatively... what was I going to say? Have your normal password, but then like switch things out for like symbols and numbers and complicate it that way in a very sort of confusing way. But XKCD raised a very good point, but this is actually very difficult to remember. It's pretty confusing because it's not like a very human way to remember things. And even then, it's not too difficult to brute force into because normally passwords are still kind of short. If it's something like, I can't remember the values, if it's something like less than 10 characters long or something, you could feasibly like brute force into it. I think. Actually, is that right? This is sort of like ballpark. You got like how many different characters out there? Let's say like 100 or so. 100 to the power of 10 seconds. No, wait, that's a bit long. Maybe it's like if it's less than like 6 characters or something, you could feasibly break into it. By the way, we're just looking for Phoebe now, which is why we came into this museum in the first place, so we can actually give her stuff. She might not be around here, but it's a problem. Yeah, you can have... What's the saying? You could feasibly break into certain passwords if they're too short. Oh, there you are, Phoebe. But one of an important factor, I suppose, in making a password is just making it long enough that it's like annoying to break into. So the example that they give as a memorable password which is difficult to break into is correct horse battery staple. Just all lowercase, and that's it. And you know, that's very feasible to remember. It's to do with memorization. It's a lot easier to memorize like things you can imagine, I suppose, or funny stories, or something you can actually make a mnemonic of. In the first place, in this case, a good example, just like a horse looking at a battery staple, going battery staple, and someone off screen going, that's correct. It's a very memorable image. And those are the things which sort of stick into your memories every time you need to log into your account. You could be like, oh yeah, it's something to do with a correct... There's a horse being correct and there's a battery staple, when, you know, from there it's just like I'm trying to figure out 4 things and which order they go in, and that's significantly easier than trying to remember every possible substitution you might have done for your previous password. So, you know, I suppose that's not too surprising, but it's not really something that people think about all that often. Which is fair. I mean, it's not like something which comes up all that often. It's like cybersecurity isn't even really taught in schools. At least it wasn't for us. It might be nowadays, which is awesome if it is. But yeah. But even then, like, even if you're like, that doesn't seem very safe, you can just make it even more complicated if you want from that. Like, instead of doing just like all lowercase, why don't you capitalize at the start of every word in that sentence? Why don't you also put some numbers on the end? You know, just put the numbers like 666 at the end, and then boom, you know. You know, it's the evil devil's number, you put that in the end, and you put an exclamation mark, because you can just imagine the horse yelling, that's a battery staple. And it just adds another layer of security on the top. But apparently also, now that method's actually quite easy to break into, because if you're using actual like English words, or whatever language I suppose you speak, it's a lot easier to do like some sort of like dictionary attack. I can't remember what it's called or something. I think it's something like a dictionary attack. To actually try out a load of different possible words and that sort of thing. So yeah, password leaks are always a bit of a scary thing. So, you know, that's why two-factor authentication is much more popular nowadays. And it's something I certainly use a lot of time. By the way, when you set up two-factor authentication, make sure you keep those recovery codes somewhere safe. Because that's your backup. If you ever change your phone and you forget to change your two-factor authentication, you won't have anything to like solve it with. You'll just be like, I'm in trouble. Because I no longer have access to my account because that's gone. So, you know, just be careful, I suppose, about that sort of thing is really all I'm boiling it down to. But yeah, two-factor authentication is very good because, you know, I think I keep bringing up Tom Scott because he's done interesting videos, or perhaps it's more like these he does videos that I'm interested in. But the whole point of a cybersecurity is like a password is something that only like the way you do security things. There's like 3 things you can check. You can check certain information that only the client should know, certain objects which only the client should have, and there's another one, but I can't remember what. Something unique to the person. So one of them would be like one of the categories was like a biometric thing, like a fingerprint or something like that. Fingerprint scan was the example, and then one of them, of course, the only something you should know would be like a security question or a password, and then the final thing being like only something you should own, in this case being like your mobile phone. And then just setting up 2 of those is not exactly, of course, like perfect, but it's going to be a good way to make sure you don't get like only you can get into your account. And it just reminds me of like the password thing, because there was like ages ago there was like this massive password leak, wasn't there? Like loads of different websites got compromised because of I can't remember which bug it was, to be honest, but it was kind of worrying, and I was like, oh gosh. Luckily for me, a lot of those passwords which were used were back previously, before I started using unique passwords for everything, and were basically all the same passwords, and also were for the only passwords they shared were for accounts which either I no longer had or used, or things which didn't really matter, like, you know, like, I don't know, my Neopets account or something like that. Like, things like that aren't that big a deal. I'm not saying that gives you a excuse to exactly be like, oh, you know, who cares in the end. You should still practice good cybersecurity when you can, but it's just sort of like I suppose the deficits for something like that happening are not as significant, I suppose, in the end, which was a little bit comforting. There's this website called amipwned.com or whatever, where you can type in your emails and you can see what sort of accounts been compromised. I remember that the only ones that were compromised on me were Neopets, and I changed the password, I think, since then, and like Edmodo, which was this old like online student. It's like Google Classroom, like what we used to use for Google Classroom, except for, which is weird because the time we had Google Classroom and we actually used it, we had Google Classroom, but one of the teachers used Edmodo or something instead, and it was terrible, and we basically never got any use out of it, but we had to have it anyway. But it was fine because those passwords were like old passwords which I never used, which are back in the day where I was just like, oh, I don't really, you know, no one's going to break into my account. And so far no one has. Although I did used to get like constant emails of being seeing like, oh, you know, someone's trying to log into your Epic Games account, and I'm just like, stop, please. Like, people were like requesting password resets, so then I just set up 2-factor authentication, never had that problem again. It's just like putting a second lock on your door, you know. Any opportunistic thief that's what opportunistic thief is going to look at that and be like, 2 locks, that's too much effort. And we just leave. But deterrent is as strong as many other things. Oh, I forgot to make a hot item. I guess I'll just catch fish and deep sea dive instead. Yeah, so just be careful. Like, you can use that on my pwned website, see if anything else is compromised. Maybe I'll do it right now, you know. I'll do my old emails, because, you know, if you don't trust it, that's fair enough. That's not how you spell am I pwned. Am I pwned? Or have I been pwned? That's it. Let's put in my old email, which obviously I'm not going to say out loud because I don't want to expose my email. Oh no, pwned by what? Edmodo. You know, who cares about that? Not me. What about this one? Good news, no pwned. These are just my current emails. All good. And how about my very, very old email? Which obviously, again, I'm not going to say it out loud. This one was pwned on Neopets, if I recall. Adobe was pwned. Wow. Town of Salem pwned. Everybody edits. Heroes and UF. Neopets. Online spam bot. Verifications.io. Don't worry. I've changed. For one, I've changed this email's password since then. I don't even use this email for Adobe, so I don't know how I got pwned there. Town of Salem. I don't care about Town of Salem. I'll be honest. Everybody else, I don't care about that. These are old like browser games. I don't even know if everybody else is still open. Heroes of New Earth. I'm pretty sure that's closed. Been closed for like 3 years now. Neopets. Password has been changed since then. Online spam bot. I don't even know. But anyway, there you go. Just be careful. You know, cybersecurity is a big deal, and if you can set up 2-factor authentication, I certainly would, wherever you could. It's certainly a lot easier, and it's, honestly, like, it's not even a big deal anymore. It used to be a huge annoyance for me because it used to, the only way you could do it would be through text, and I used to not get signal at home, which you might be like, that's kind of weird. He's like, yeah, because the service provider I was on used to not be able to get phone signal inside homes, and I've since changed change to a different one, which now does, so that's not even that big a deal. So I used to hate setting up, but nowadays you got apps for everything. You know, Google Authenticator, Authy. There's the 2 different apps, and you can use whichever one you use. I use Google Authenticator most of the time. The only exception is Twitch uses Authy, because Twitch doesn't allow Google Authenticator. Last time, well, when I set it up, I got the Steam app as well to have my Steam account. And also, you know, the benefits are, even if your account does get hacked, luckily, you know, customer support services are very good these days, I suppose, at stopping the fraud, because, you know, if they don't, I suppose they're in deep legal water. Deep legal, dark, troubled waters. Wait, what's a phrase? I don't know. So you can just talk to customer support, be like, hey, you know, lost my account. Stop that. And even better, you can just go to your bank and be like, hey, any charges on this? Stop them immediately. And banks are pretty good at doing things. They'll stop things going through. Like, I remember I ordered something off Amazon.jp because what was it? It was just like this anime, like piano music book things. It's actually sitting on my bookshelf over when I haven't played from it from ages. And I've learned only like one of the pieces, sort of, but even then. But anyway, I did that, and then my bank like sent a text being like, hey, there's some weird purchasing going on. Like, even though it's, you know, from the UK, it's from like a very random source which you've never purchased from. Is this you? And then I went, yeah, this is me, don't worry about it. And we were like, alright. And it was all good, you know. Banks tend to be quite on top of this sort of thing for good reason, because, you know, when you're playing around with people's money, that's literally life-ruining power if, you know, it gets into wrong hands, I suppose. Not to say that banks are like all free from guilt or anything like that, but, you know, the investor aspect, you know, they have services to help you recover this sort of thing. You know, you can cancel your card if you lose it. Your account will get frozen if there's too much weird or fraudulent activity, any strange activity, and other things like that. Even nowadays, you can have like online like wallets, or like not different banks, but like pseudo banks, or like different things. Like, I use this one called Revolut, which normally I used abroad because I forget, like it doesn't charge like conversion rates between currencies, so using it abroad is cheaper. Like, you have lower fees or something than using your debit or credit card. Yeah, and you can use that, you know, like you top it out. It's basically a virtual wallet, you know, like if someone gets access to your card details through that sort of thing, or you get your access to your account from that, I'm going to lose at most, like, I don't know, £10. I don't keep much on it in the first place. So yeah, basically what I'm saying is passwords are, you know, a necessary sort of evil, but not the only thing that you should particularly rely on if you want good cybersecurity. I suppose if you're someone who doesn't really care about your own cybersecurity, then I guess kind of do whatever you want. But just like make sure. I'm not saying you have to change your password every 2 weeks or something like that. Like, in an ideal world, yeah, that'd be good. But, you know, you're human. That's like utterly ridiculous. That's something which is straight up unmanageable. Unless you have like a password manager or something like that. So I'm not saying do that. That's crazy. But at least like have different passwords for everything, so you have like layers of redundancy. If one of your passwords gets compromised, you only have to change one account rather than changing like 15 accounts all linked together. I sort of just like you know, do yourself a favour, eh? I suppose is where I'm going with all of this. And just don't make your password or pass123 or password 321 or hello, anything like that. Just at least put a little bit of effort in. And hopefully something memorable, but not personal information, because personal information can be found out about you rather easily. Spearfishing, attacking, and all that sort of thing. Spearfish attack, by the way, I believe is wait, it's not called a spearfish, it might just be called a spear attack. I can't remember. It's basically where you target one specific person and then basically try and extract their information in a very specific way, like spending a spam email specifically curated for them to get them to enter their account details onto like a dodgy link or something like that. But yeah, you know, just like also be kind to yourself. You're human, you're fallible. You might make a mistake and you might... What? Did we not get 3 deep sea creatures? Oh, we only got 2. Oh, Pearl doesn't count as one. Yeah, you might make a mistake, so, you know, forgive yourself if something goes wrong, but know that it's not the end of the world. But to save yourself a headache and for trouble, you know, set the preventative measures up first before you know, hopefully you won't have to face that trouble in the first place. And, you know, that's the ideal situation, unsurprisingly, in the end. Oh, a chamber Nautilus. So yeah, there's probably better you listen to a cybersecurity expert than me, a random person playing Animal Crossing. This is, I suppose, me relaying my very sort of, I was going to say like commoner level knowledge. I don't know why I'm talking like this is D&D or something. My very sort of like low level knowledge in these sort of areas, but I think it's like good advice in the end. Probably, maybe, I don't know. If I give bad advice, I apologise. It's not my intention. But, you know, I suppose the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So I'm not free of guilt from that sort of thing. But anyway, should we round this episode off here then? If you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares are greatly appreciated. Join the Dear Darling Discord and follow me on Twitter down below. Hope we can see each other again. But for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.